is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it? I'm the Doctor. Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
Small off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Alright dudes, it's time for another episode of It's Time to Rewind. I am known as Bubbawheat. Not the Bubbawheat, not first name Bubba, last name Wheat, just Bubbawheat. This season is Red Who, where I'm covering British sci-fi like Red Dwarf and Doctor Who, and joining me 3 million years in the future via the TARDIS is my guest, David Brook. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, and this week we are talking about Back to Reality, which was the 6th and final episode of Series 5 of Red Dwarf, originally released on March 26th, 1992. But before we jump into today's episode, how did you discover Red Dwarf? What's your history with the show?
Well, I'm trying to figure it out, but looking at the years, I think my memory either is incorrect or I'm I watched it as a kid, basically. I can remember watching it on TV because I'm British, as you probably noticed. And so, yeah, it aired in the UK. And I can remember watching it, but I certainly didn't watch the first couple of series. I mean, I was born in 82, so the first series was 88, so I was 6 years old, way too young. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, I kind of feel like I started on series 3. Like, series 3 is probably the most familiar series for me. But looking at when it came out, I'd only been about 7. I was like, I don't know, maybe I was a bit young. So perhaps I watched it on reruns, but I'm pretty sure I was watching the series when it came to almost certainly series 6. I'm certain I watched that on broadcast as it came out. I can remember watching The Gunmen of the Apocalypse when it was premiered in 1993. So I watched the series when it was on TV, but not the first few, and it's a bit hazy where I started because it's a long time ago. I was always a fan of the series. It was one of my favorites back then. I must admit, I did kind of lose track of this series in later years. Like, I think I watched up to series 8, but series 8 was starting to get a bit weak. It moved away from the formula, and I wasn't as big a fan, and I kind of dropped out after that. I did watch, because series 9 is the feature length, Back to Earth. I did watch that when it came out. I actually reviewed it. It was one of the first kind of DVDs I was sent to review when it came out, and so I have seen that. But the other series following that, I haven't actually seen them. I think a lot of them were on. It moved. It used to be in the UK. It used to be on. It was on BBC Two. I think it was on the BBC. Which is one of the free-to-air channels, just the standard kind of TV channels in the UK. But I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure after series 9,
it switched to Dave.
Yeah, it moved to Dave, and I think I can't remember when it came out. I think maybe I could have accessed Dave. It is on a Freeview channel, but I don't know, at the time maybe I didn't have it, or I didn't have the access. I think trying to think what was happening then. Oh no, 2012. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I just kind of. I didn't realize it was on was probably the problem. I think in those days there was just too much TV going on. I just didn't realize it was on. When I did find out it was on, I didn't hear great things about it, and I was just like, I won't bother. I'll leave my memory of Red Dwarf as it is. So I've kind of skipped the last few. But to be honest, reading up and things, I've heard series 10 is actually supposed to be quite good, and so I do want to try and give them a try, really. But in terms of, I mean, as I say, I watched them back when they were released, which was a long time ago, but I've tried to slowly kind of rewatch the series, and I think I'd watched the first 3 series a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and then again I kind of forgotten about it. But when you contacted me about this show, I thought, actually, this is a good chance to start catching up again. So although I'm doing it in the wrong order, I watched series 5 first, ready for the show, and then I realised I haven't seen series 4 for ages. I've just started to rewatch that, but I'm only like 1 episode in, so it's been nice to kind of revisit it because it's been far too long.
Yeah,
So,
and the good
yeah.
thing about it is, it being a half-hour show and just six
Yeah.
episodes per series, it's not that hard to catch up on.
No, that is something I must admit I do kind of like that about British series. I know some people feel it's not long enough, but I feel some TV series just go on forever, and it just, I don't know, it's too hard. I never have time to get through them, so I don't actually watch a lot of TV anymore because I find them too long. And I think sometimes when a series goes on and on and on, the writers are obliged to kind of throw too much in there, and it can get a bit, either you have to have dozens of characters and there's just a lot to keep hold of, and it's hard to keep the quality up, I think, as well. When you do get obviously there are some fantastic TV series that have been made in recent years that are longer, but I kind of like the old UK 6-episode kind of things. As you say, it's easier to get through, and you can keep that quality up without spending a lot of money and time on it. So
I started into another series, spin-off series that I'm going to be covering it, towards the back end of this season, which is K9, which was an Australian kind of spin-off of Doctor Who, and that has been a slog. It's a half hour it's a half-hour show, and it was like 2009-ish. Yeah, I think it was like right around the time, like maybe it was like 2010-ish, but it was like right around the time whenever K9 and Sarah Jane came back on the new Doctor Who, when they had that one episode. And then like it was right around the same time that the Sarah Jane Adventures came out as well. But yeah, that's been a tough series to get through, even though it's only like half-hour long. But they did do like 20 some episodes for the season, and I think the time loop episode is like around episode 12. So I'm at least trying to get to
get there,
trying to go through it to get to the time loop episode, and then I'm probably going to quit after that.
I must admit, Doctor Who's one of those series that I'm not as familiar with. I watched one of the series that was out when I was, I don't know, I'm so bad with ages, probably about 10 or something. And I remember it always scared me. I think it's one of the infamously not very good series from the, I guess, the late 80s, early 90s. That kind of, because Doctor Who stopped for quite a long while. I might be wrong, and I think it was around about then.
Yeah,
I can remember liking it then, but I don't know. I never really gave any of the other ones a shot. I think it always just kind of, I'd say, other than that first series when I was a bit younger, I think by the time they rejuvenated it, I was the wrong sort of age. I think I was probably at uni or something else, and I don't know, it just didn't seem cool enough or whatever. And I just I never really gave it a shot. I've seen it once or twice, but yeah, I'm much less familiar with this. I was definitely down for a Red Dwarf rather than a Doctor Who in this case.
Yeah, I think there was a gap in the Classic Who years, and then of course there was a big gap between Classic Who to the the first reboot series. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into Back to Reality, which this is another season that doesn't really have a time loop episode, so I just kind of picked my favorite episode of the series, and it is, I think, considered one of the best of the series as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just so much fun, and it does, spoilers for people that haven't seen it. It does tie into the series 9 film, The Back to Earth, because this is our first run-in with the Despair Squid.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's definitely up there for best episodes for me, and especially and certainly for the series. I was rewatching I think like series 5. As I say, I rewatched the whole series in prep for this, and it did stand out for me because there's so much going on with it. Yeah, we'll get more into it in a second, I guess. But
yeah, and I know you rewatched it. I can't remember because I've just been watching each episode that I'm covering, and my big rewatch was about a year ago at this point, where I went through the whole run of Red Dwarf start to finish, including the new stuff. But Is Rimmer solid at this point? Is he hard light?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I'm not sure. Actually, I didn't. Again, it's been a while since I've seen 1, 2, and 3, and I haven't done 4 yet. So they don't really do his. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. No, because I don't think he can touch things. There's one of the episodes in series 5 where he talks
It
about.
was Legion. Legion is the episode
because
where
he makes it.
becomes hard
He's like, oh, I can finally touch things and stuff like that. And it's they do make a deal out of that. So it must be later. I feel like it might be 6. Might be the next series.
light.
Can't remember. It's been too long.
Yeah, it is series 6. That's where Legion is, because I do remember that Legion is the episode where he becomes
Oh right, okay, I get it.
hard light, because he gets it from Legion.
Yeah.
And then he has it then from then on. So yeah, because I was just thinking, because they're on the the away mission, as you would call it if you're a Star Trek fan, onto the SSS in Esperanto, which that was another kind of thing. I believe by series 5 they had already mostly dropped the whole Esperanto stuff, but that was like a big part of the early series with the Esperanto, level and novello on all the corridors, and Rimmer keeps trying to learn Esperanto, but I think it was mostly gone by this point. So I almost feel like them naming the ship the SSS Esperanto is kind of a callback to that.
Definitely, definitely a callback.
But Rimmer he's like the he's the one that stays on the Starbug and doesn't actually go on the mission, which makes sense at this point in time if he can't really touch anything. And we get this almost like it starts out with the kind of danger, and it's the moment I think Red Dwarf does really well, where it's like a mix of real sci-fi with comedy, because this, and again going back to like Star Trek, this is a little bit of like Wrath of Khan, because this is like the Genesis planet where they are basically kind of terraforming this planet. There, I think it was like 3 million years of evolution in 3 solar years.
Oh yeah, there's a mention that it's a very dark opening as well. Like I forgot how dark the beginning is. You've got the kind of suicide corpses and things in the underwater ship. It's it starts off kind of grim.
Yeah, they find the skeleton that shot himself through the head, and then the other skeleton that's hanging, and the skeleton is more played for horror than for laughs, because it is like it's not like the fully plastic skeleton. They do go through the extra length to make it look more mummified, where it does have that layer of skin, which does make it a bit more gruesome and a little, just slightly less silly. But then very quickly they get to the humor whenever they get to the fish that suffocated itself, the haddock.
Yeah.
To where the fish voluntarily closed its own gills and suffocated itself in water.
Not quite sure how they deduce that so easily. Never mind.
Yeah, and then we get the whole mystery, because Lister finds it, and then they just start running back to the ship, and the entire time Rimmer's like, "What's going on?" And it's just, "Hurry, we have to get to the airlock." And then they kind of slowly explain basically the setup for the whole episode, which I am. This is like, going through the series again. A lot of the earlier episodes, especially, there was, like kind of the A plot and the B plot. And the A plot was the entire first half of the episode, and the B plot was the entire second half of the episode. Like White Hole, I think they don't really get to the White Hole element until like 18 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
But this one, they really gets to the first half is the the setup for the second half, because the first half is all, discovering the despair squid, and then the second half is the results of the despair squid.
Yeah.
And we do have this like nice little chase sequence, and just the little bit of Holly, which I believe this is kind of where they've kind of cut a lot of Holly. We don't get a whole lot of Holly in Series 5.
Well, she's
that's
gone
right,
by the
yeah.
next season, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to there's a lot of special features on the British DVDs for these. And yeah, it's interesting. The interview, Hattie, Brian, trying to remember her name now. Yeah, that's the one. Hattie Hayridge. And she was kind of talking about how at the end of the series, she kind of got she got asked to see the producers and to have a word, and she wasn't. She kind of jokingly said, "Oh, I'm fired then," and they said, "Oh well," kind of. And yeah, so yeah, it was a bit of a shock by the sounds of things. But at the same time, she said how she could kind of tell by Series 5 that because the reason they got rid of her, it's not that they didn't like her at all. It was they were running out of things to do with Holly, because they just get rid of Holly by Series 6, and they were just running out of jokes and things and didn't know what to do with her, and they just decided to write her out of there, really.
I've mentioned it in earlier episodes, but I think the running theory is that Holly was a lot of exposition in the early series, and once they brought Crichton in, Crichton became the exposition machine, and so they didn't need Holly for the exposition, and so they kind of ran out of things from that.
It's a shame because I do like both of the actors for that. Although they do bring Holly back, obviously. Is it straight away from season 7? I think so. I think it might be one without him. I can't remember. I might be wrong. But they bring back
Norman Lovett. Yeah.
Norman, yeah.
Yeah, and they, although he does still have a fairly minimal role, I think, because he spends a lot of time on the watch after, in the later series, and he just kind of pops up whenever they need him to do something. And then he just gets, I think, he kind of gets his best part whenever they bring him back for Skipper. Well, it's, I guess you wouldn't know, but the final episode of series 12, I think, the last, the one before the Promised Land, which is the second full length feature that they did. So they kind of bring him back, and he does, because Rimmer is going through the multiverse, and so he gets to another fully crewed Red Dwarf, and the gag is, which it's fun. It's like the reverse of the first episode where Holly is telling Rimmer nobody's dead, Rimmer, and just going through that, which it's fun. But yeah, and then this kind of opening. This opening scene ends with, kind of a bit of a surprise where they're being chased by the despair squid, and they try to outmaneuver it and run into a rock and blow up the starbug. And very quickly we get the game over screen and the score 4% and the machine 16. So that's kind of a, they don't really linger on it. Like they don't make you think that the characters have died. It's like they switch over into the fully immersive video game of Red Dwarf pretty quickly. And then we see the four of them in this, the 90s VR setup.
Yeah.
Which it kind of reminds me of the Total Recall machine. It's like low budgets, the Total Recall machine from the Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah, I can see that totally. Yeah, and you obviously get the and this is the is this the first Dwayne Digley episode?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is the we get the introduction of Dwayne Dibley because we did get I didn't go back and check, but like in the um, polymorph episode,
Hmm.
I believe we get like some version of Dwayne Dibley, but I don't believe
Yeah.
it's I don't believe it's this version of Dwayne Dibley.
Yeah, and you get everyone with their different wigs and hairpieces and makeup. It's another thing. Another thing that's quite funny from the special features was Robert Llewellyn was kind of hoping that this is when he saw the script that he'd finally get a chance to not have to have ridiculous levels of makeup, but it's just a slightly different Crichton head, really. So we didn't really save him much.
It's like the forehead's metal, but everything else. Well, the forehead is metal, and he doesn't have like the hands.
Oh yeah.
So it's just the face, but it's like I'm sure that the face makeup is kind of the longest prep.
Yeah.
So saving the hands doesn't really save him a ton of time in the makeup chair.
Although they do say another thing that did save some time is whenever he wears the sunglasses, they didn't have to because he put sunglasses on later on. He didn't need the eye makeup was a lot simpler, so that saved time as well. So slightly nicer, but still not perfect.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to do all the blending. Yeah, and we get Lister has like a more I don't know, stylish hair, I guess. And Rimmer has like the homeless blonde wig.
Yeah, it always reminds
sticking up everywhere.
Yeah, and with the kind of jumpsuit, he almost reminds me of Doc Brown from Back to the Future a little bit, almost, but younger.
Yeah. And of course, we already talked about Cat with the Dwayne Dibley like almost bowl cut, and then in walks Wormtail for fans of Harry Potter. Peter Pettigrew. I didn't. Let's see. I've got it up here. What's his act?
Timothy Spall. I was going to say.
Yeah, Timothy Spall.
Yeah, he's very famous in the UK for all sorts. I've got to say, it's he's a bit of a legend in TV and film. So yeah, I totally forgot he was in it when I saw this. It was quite a nice surprise.
Yeah, and he has like I think the best role in this moment because he just goes on and on about basically treating Red Dwarf as a game. And like I love this bit where he's talking about the all these different quote unquote obvious clues. It's like asking River, oh, didn't you get the the captain's message that it was hidden in his in the eye?
Yeah, there's a micro dot in his eye. Yeah. And the best one is like the what is it, the planet of the nymphomaniacs. It's like, some people spend like a year in there. It's like that is absolutely classic, that.
Yeah, and this is like I don't remember if it was something that they actually made a reference to earlier in the series, and this was like them kind of retconning it a little bit because he says that's the clue that Rimmer has a swimming certificate whenever he can't swim.
Yeah,
because that's like it's one of those things like Rimmer's only like medals or like his only honors is BSS and SSS, which is bronze swimming certificate and silver swimming certificate.
Yeah, there's one of the clues in there, isn't there? I'm trying to think what he says now, but yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the fact that Rimmer is supposed to be a secret agent and he's just pretending to be a total prat the entire time.
Yeah.
And that the entire point of the game is to find a way to bring Kachansky back to life, which is what they do in a couple of series. Yeah, I think that's kind of funny too. It's let's see, that would be, was it series 6 or was it series 7? Whenever they bring Kachansky back.
Or
I believe it's 6.
At least 7. No, not in 6, unless it's right at the end. I can't. No, I think I'm pretty sure it's 7. I think 6 is the one. 6. Yeah, no, because the last episode is the Gunmen of the Apocalypse one. That's it's another one of my favorites that
Mhm.
always sticks in my mind, and she's not in that one. Yeah, no, I think it's 7.
Yeah, I was trying to remember because I was thinking that there was like one entire series where it's all just Kachansky, and then one entire series where it's them, with the crew back, and then one series with them being in jail. But I guess the series with the crew back is the one being with them in jail.
Oh yeah. It's series. I'm just looking now on it's series 7. She comes back halfway through series 7, and then but then they're not back. That's before they don't bring all the crew back. Then isn't it? They just bring her back.
Yeah, because she comes from an alternate dimension. So she's an alternate Kachansky rather than the their Kachansky. That's why she acts different and why they give her I think that's
different actress as well.
Actress, yeah. And then we get this we spend a lot of time with him like going over the game and all the mistakes they made, and he's like, no wonder you only scored 4%. And then we get the the new group of players coming in.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
And they still don't have their memories, and they're going to he's like, recuperation lounge. That's what I've been telling you.
And it is brilliant. The kind of play up the new crew are so notably different from the old crew. Just making the kind of joke of it is brilliant.
Yeah.
What's interesting actually is that I think supposedly their joke about it, I'm not sure how true it is, but again, I keep going back to the special features, but they're good fun. But they were kind of joking on some of those about how they were a bit worried that it was going to be the replacement crew in general to get rid of them. and actually, it was after series 5 that they made the American Red Dwarf, and obviously they, other than Robert Llewellyn, they did have a new crew. So it makes it gives it a bit of an unusual dynamic, that bit when you see the alternative Red Dwarf cast.
Yeah, I haven't watched them myself yet. I believe that they're both on YouTube, but they actually tried it 2 different times with with an American cast, and it did not go very well either time. Although I do know, believe, which I'd forgotten. You were saying one of them did bring back Robert Llewellyn as Crichton.
Yeah. Is he not in both of them then? I'm not sure. I must admit,
I don't think he's in both. And I know
okay.
one of them, again, going back to Star Trek, one of them has Terry Farrell that was in Deep Space Nine that played Jadzia Dax.
Yeah.
She plays the female cat, I believe, in one of them.
Oh, yeah. But I'm trying to think. He's in the I can't remember I don't know which way around. As I say, it's there's a special feature on the disc purely about the American one, but so it shows a lot of clips from them, but I haven't sat and watched the actual episodes. I've just seen the little bits and pieces, but yeah, it just seemed wrong. It's kind of I think when you take because there's quite a few there's a few cases in the past where American series have where a US company has tried to remake a British one, and it quite often goes horribly wrong. Occasionally it's worked, but I think when it's worked, it's needed to kind of change the formula. And I think with this, they almost just tried to copy it with new people, and it just didn't work because the cast is so key and the characters are so key to the success of Red Dwarf. A huge amount of it is just that dynamic between the lead characters, and you can't just transpose that to new actors.
Yeah, I almost feel like they should go back and like the pilot of an American Red Dwarf should be like this. Should like start with this episode and them coming back to reality again, and then the new crew, and then the new crew is all Americans, and then it just goes straight into it. They don't even get what they should do is like not even pay attention to the British cast, but like just bring the British cast in for the first 2 minutes, and it's them getting out of the machine, and then the American cast getting into the machine, and then it goes into the opening, and then goes into the pilot of the first episode right after that.
That'd be awesome. Oh, that'd be crazy. I guess the only thing then is that at the back of the mind, you'd always know this is just a game. But no, that'd be cool. But yeah, I did like that touch. I think what's interesting with this episode in general is that obviously a big kind of gag in that second half is showing what these characters, an alternative version of the characters, and playing with alternate version characters, and it's kind of something that you get a lot in Red Dwarf. It comes back, and I think in general in series 5, at least, maybe it's just because I've seen it recently, maybe it probably happens more often than I think, but certainly later on. But series 5 has quite a few of these kind of, well, not always alternative realities of versions of each other, but kind of playing around. Well, no, it does, because you get the I always forget the names. When Rimmer goes to that hollow ship and he downloads somebody else's brain so that he can be more intelligent, and again you get a total alternative Rimmer. It does love. Oh, yeah, no, that's the other one. On Demons and Angels, the episode just before this, you get the kind of the perfect crew and then the kind of evil crew. And I don't know if it's just this series, but it really loves messing around with the characters and kind of turning them on their heads. It's just some kind of common thread.
And I think they tend to give most of that stuff to Chris Berry, because he's the one that excels at it the most. Although, I do enjoy Lister's evil version, just how he's like constantly like laughing and squealing.
Well, this is going to come later in the show, I guess, if we're doing it in time. But obviously, part of this is the whole idea of this new reality is that they've been turned into the versions of themselves that they hate, basically, because it's. Yeah, I'm spoiling it, but I don't know what being spoilers or what. But
these are all basically, it's kind of not exactly the same as Polymorph, where they sucked out elements of their personalities, but it's kind of like a mix between Polymorph and Inquisitor, where it's like these personalities, like you were saying, is based on their biggest fears for themselves. They turned into like the worst version of themselves that they could possibly think of. And so we have as they're opening up the suitcases, we got Dwayne Dibley with a horrible fashion sense, who's living in a Salvation Army hostel, and we have Jake Bullitt, Cybernautics Division, which, like, in the beginning, they kind of joke. It's like, what if the Cybernautics Division is just like traffic cops, and you just have a horribly ironic name. And then whenever they get out into the totalitarian government real world, they find out that it really is just the traffic division.
Yeah, hell, he has a gun for some reason.
Yeah, and I think, another great moment is whenever they're opening Rimmer's bag, and they get the name Billy Doyle, and Rimmer goes off, and it's like, Billy Granny Killer Doyle, like that sounds like the name of a miscreant, and then they get to the punchline. It's like, oh, this is you, and then Billy Doyle, William Doyle. William Doyle sounds like such a great name.
Yeah, it's absolutely, that whole scene is amazing. There's so many great kind of monologues in that scene. Again, like you say, a lot of it on Chris Barry, but it's pure genius, that sequence. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. As I say, I think it's a huge reason why Red Dwarf works so well. As I mentioned earlier, is the cast. And the characters, and they're just perfect for the characters. Well, I guess they create the characters in a way. Even if they didn't write them, they kind of bring their own kind of through their performance, they bring their own personality into there. And this episode, I think, really plays into that so well as having a kind of really nice, a clever concept. But yeah, a lot of the episodes have quite clever concepts, but it does it very effectively here.
Yeah, and Sebastian Doyle, Lister, which it is kind of funny too that they end up making the two of them brothers, half brothers on the mother's side, uterine, as Rimmer or as Crichton points out. Uterinal.
Yeah.
That's the term. And Lister is like the rich, rich version of, again, like kind of the opposite of what Lister would think of himself. And then especially whenever we get the reveal later on, whenever they get into the real world, that's, he's rich and important because he's basically not a contract killer, but he's like the
Well, he's a
like a
politician.
government.
Hmm.
Well, he's
Yeah.
like a government hitman. I think, like he's the one, or maybe it is like the politician element.
Yeah, I thought he was one of the kind of. Maybe I'm wrong. I just thought he was kind of the leader. Of this, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's not quite clear if he's, because I always got the impression that he was the one that was actually killing the people. But I guess it could make just as much sense as he's the one that's ordering the deaths of people. So he's maybe not physically doing the killings, but he's the one responsible for the killings of loads and loads of people.
Yeah, I think that's what I got from. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's just like the ruler of this kind of fascist government. That's what.
Well, not
I think
ruler,
that's the
but
case.
some
Yeah.
higher, kind of like maybe like a Joseph Goebbels kind of character.
Yeah.
This future that we get, it's a little bit heavy-handed, but that makes sense whenever you realize that it's the Despair Squid doing this, because we got these these great posters that show up. That's vote fascist for a third glorious decade of total law enforcement, and be a government informant, betray your friends and family, fabulous prizes to be won.
Yeah. I was looking at that on IMDb.
So that element is great, and then we get this. It's like very heavy-handed, but it fits the tone of the episode, and I think it works because we get this kid that's being chased by a very Nazi-looking guy. He doesn't have the Adolf mustache, but he's got like
Close.
he's got like the Uzi, and he's very well put together, and wearing a dark suit, and he's chasing this little girl for stealing an apple. And then we have the voters, and I forget what the other but it's the language is very clearly that there's two types of people. There's the important people and everybody else. And this is where we get the reveal that Lister is not only someone important, but he's someone important within this totalitarian regime as head of the Ministry of Alteration. And then Crichton kills him, shoots him, and that's kind of his turning point. And then I'd forgotten like how quickly we get the reveal that it's all fake, because literally right after that we cut to the four of them on Red Dwarf and just play acting it out with this like fake, well, not fake, but this crossbow instead of a gun.
Oh, yeah.
And
they're in the car driving this.
Yeah.
Pretending to drive the car. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and then this entire like kind of final act is the four of them just acting out this this ludicrous car chase, but instead of it happening in this this hallucination, this group hallucination, it's just the four of them sitting on boxes and just miming it, which is it's so great. And then whenever they get out of the car, they just like run around in a circle. It is just just a fantastic performance, and the cast like really sells it, and their movements are like pretty well in sync too, and
Mm.
it's just so silly and madcap. And the
Yeah.
entire time we have like Holly in the corner, it's saying, "You're all hallucinating this.
Yeah.
Can anybody hear me?"
Yeah, and it get again like the start of the episode. It gets really dark as well. At one moment they're actually going to kill each other. They kill themselves. Although they're going to try and do it with one bullet to try and get their heads in a row. So you do.
Yeah,
They always inject some black humor in there still, but yeah, again it gets pretty dark.
Yeah, because they all gets to the point, where the the despair squid ink is got them at their lowest, and they're ready to kill themselves. But yeah, and then they inject the humor where it's like, well, I only have one bullet. Well, okay, let's stick our heads together, and the bullet will just go right through all of us. And then we have Holly switching to a higher frequency so that Crichton can hear, and then we do, and then at this point we are kind of back in the group hallucination, and so we see Crichton as Jake Bullet just doing these random things. It's like, I'm going to unscrew the top of this fire extinguisher for some unknown reason. And then, they finally, Holly finally gets through with the "you're hallucinating."
Yeah, it calls back to some substance that they mentioned earlier that supposedly can kind of
Lithium carbonate.
lithium carbonate. That's the one.
The mood stabilizer.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't talk earlier about when they first escape from the despair squid and they're in the airlock and they're having their bouts of despair. That's quite funny. But yeah, they try to explain what's happening and they just keep breaking down into tears and talking about how ruined their lives are and things.
It's like, I don't think it's affected me, and then he just starts sobbing, and Kat is like, yeah, I'm good. I got it together. Oh, why do I always have to be the strong? Yeah, and then we get Crichton's his exposition dump
as usual
at the end, where he explains why each of their personalities were specifically designed to make them depressed and suicidal. and again we get this this nice little bit of humor mixed in there where Rimmer's like, so I am Rimmer, and Crichton's like, I'm afraid so.
Yeah. Always got to get a jab at him somewhere.
Yeah,
it's a crazy balance with Rimmer in general. They've kind of crafted one of the most unlikable but at the same time brilliantly kind of watchable characters of all time. Like he's a horrible person, but he's so much fun to watch. It's perfect.
Yeah, and like Chris Berry is someone that's that really, like, I think a lot of actors would not be able to make that character work.
No. It's a shame he never he was in a few films, but he never really got much of a film career going. He was in the only kind of big thing he was in Tomb Raider, wasn't he? The Tomb Raider films.
Yeah, he was in both of those movies.
But he never really did a lot more. Did you ever see he did another fairly big series in the UK, the British Empire? I don't know if you ever watched that.
No, I've heard about it because I joined a Red Dwarf Facebook group, and it's once in a while there's good stuff, but mostly it's just people keep bringing up, oh, here's Chris Berry in British Empire, oh, here's Norman Lovett in I forget, but an early, like a pre-Red Dwarf sitcom. Here's the Smeg brand. Here's the Smeg toaster. And it's just a lot of repeats of that kind of content over and over.
But it's that's one I watched back when it was aired, and I did used to enjoy that. I don't know how well it holds up these days, but it was very entertaining. He kind of plays an almost similar character. He's kind of, again, a bit of a despicable person, but very funny to watch. It's worth checking out. He also worked on Spitting Image as well, which was a big show in the UK back in the 80s. I don't know if they ever moved to the US. Probably not, because it was always very kind of topical, kind of British news kind of things. I don't know if you heard it was all done. It's a series that was all puppets. It's very grotesque kind of puppets, and there'd be kind of grotesque puppet versions of famous people in power, or you'd have like Prince Charles. Well, he was Prince then, and Margaret Thatcher and all this kind of stuff. You'd have these kind of puppet versions of those, and just a really kind of a satire, but quite like crude and lowbrow sometimes, kind of lampooning all these famous people. But he was one of the voices on that. That was kind of one of the things that he got a name for, really, just being in behind the scenes on that, doing some of the voices. I don't know if he ever did the puppeteering, but he certainly did the voices.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that one. But then that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else about Back to Reality or about Red Dwarf in general?
I think. I mean, I keep going back to a lot of the things that I like about it. Really, as I say, I do think it's. Although I love the kind of sci-fi stories, and it's quite a clever show. I do think the cast still and the characters are one of the big reasons that it works. But it is nice to have some fun kind of interesting storylines thrown into what is ostensibly a sitcom. The only thing you could say about Red Dwarf sometimes is that the ideas are interesting and strong enough to be a feature film, and so you have to really rush through them. Like we said with this one, there you kind of you have your opening section setting things up, then you get your big twist, and they're not really in that alternate reality that long before you have to bring them back again. So it's some of the storylines can feel a little bit rushed, but it's not necessarily a problem. It's just sometimes you kind of feel, it would be nice to kind of get a full kind of story out of this. I guess the argument you could say is that there are. I've not seen The Promised Land, but they did try and do some feature-length episodes, and I don't know about The Promised Land, but the other, is it Back to Earth? Didn't really work. It's one of the weaker.
Yeah, it's one of the I feel like most fans of Red Dwarf kind of don't like Back to Earth, and
I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it, but it certainly didn't really live up to expectations.
Yeah, although I really liked it. So I feel like I'm in the minority, but I really enjoyed all the meta humor and the callbacks to the despair squid, and even like even the name of the episode. It's like once you see it, it's like, oh, of course, Back to Earth is the opposite of Back to Reality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I need to rewatch it. As I say, I'm just trying to get back into it now. I ended up buying another couple of series that I didn't have, because I only had I think 1 to 6. So I've started to buy some of the others to move on up and watch more of them. And as I say, the DVDs are really good. They some of them been updated to Blu-ray as well, but I feel because it was shown on TV originally, it never looked that great anyway. I'm happy with the DVDs, but the DVDs are fantastic.
I've got the DVDs for 1 through 5, which I'm pretty sure the US versions that I have are basically just a repackaging and a change in the region code, but I believe they're the same release, which I am kind of disappointed. Like my life's been a little bit busy these past few weeks, so I haven't really been able to dig into the special features as much as I would have liked to. And now moving on, I've got more time, but I only have this is the last DVD I have. I don't have a series 6 and beyond, so I'm not able to get into the special features from here on out, unless that kind of stuff is that it's not very well archived, so it's difficult to impossible to find that that stuff online anywhere.
Yeah it is. But yeah, I'm a big special features guy. I guess that's my website kind of these days specializes in the boutique Blu-rays with all the extra bits and pieces, so it's my wheelhouse, really.
Yeah, and speaking of your website, why don't you let's talk a little bit about that and let people know where else you can be found online.
Yeah, well, I run and write for blueprintreview.co.uk, We, as I mentioned, we tend to these days focus on boutique Blu-rays and UHDs and things, and we cover quite a range of films, kind of world cinema, cult films, indie films, classics. We occasionally hit some of the new releases, but not often. It tends to be more the weird and wonderful kind of side of things. We've also I've resurrected the podcast, although I must admit we missed it last month. But I'm trying to keep it a monthly podcast. I'm trying to keep it quite loose, just talking about films that we've seen recently, just any kind of film. On disc though, I'm trying to stick to the focus on disc because that's what our website's all about, really. So yeah, if you look for the Blueprint Review podcast, you can find that there.
And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me on all social media where I'm at Bubbawheat. These days, I'm mostly on Threads, but I still have pretty much all the other social media accounts still installed on my phone. So if you send me a message, then I will most likely reply to you because as long as I get the notification. And we also have a Facebook group. It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, and you can join that to discuss episodes as they come out and also have discussions about other time loop movies and TV shows, anything coming out, anything that's already been out. And until next time, smoke me a kipper and I will regenerate before breakfast next week.